everyone to another week of the Focus TV. We have Octavia White here, Raymond Lyons, I'm Wilson Tarpe Jr. Gonna get straight into it. The NFC East, as we keep getting closer and closer to the end of the NFL's regular season. For some folks, we're happy that it's getting closer to the end. For other folks, you're in the midst of fighting in your division and seeing where you're gonna end up at. So, good luck to all those folks. But Octavia, as always, what the heck's going on in y'all's wonderful division?
Just a bunch of nonsense, like normal. It's the NFC East. This is what you get. Another crazy week. We had another interdivision game that we'll get to, which it feels like it was so long ago because it was on Thanksgiving, but we will get to that game as well. But we'll start with the easy game. Washington Commanders, welcome back to the party. The Washington Commanders defeated the Tennessee Titans 42-19. May I add, it was 28-0 in the first quarter or second quarter. Whatever it was ridiculous to the point where I was like, I'm not watching this. I'm not. But Jaden Daniels was 25 of 30, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Sacked twice, 9 carries for 34 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Brian Robinson Jr. had 16 carries for 103 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 reception for 6 yards. Chris Rodriguez Jr., 13 carries, 94 yards, 1 touchdown. Terry McLaurin, 8 carries, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Zach Ertz, 3 receptions, 35 yards, 1 touchdown. It was a game that the Commanders needed for, of course, their own psyche, and a game that everybody expected them to win. The Titans defeated the Houston Texans last week, but I'm pretty sure we all thought that was a fluke. The Texans just didn't play that well, and CJ Stroud and them have been struggling. But yeah, this was a game that they were supposed to win, and they took that to heart. You could tell that they're coming off a 3-game losing streak, and you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat if you want to have any type of momentum going into the playoff push that's coming up. So again, they struggled in their previous 3 weeks. They lost to Dallas, they lost to Philadelphia, which are 2 big games for them because they're division games, of course. And then they also lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they were definitely needing that. A big issue during that game was their run game. Quick housekeeping information, Austin Eckler in the last game, he had that concussion. They have placed him on injured reserve, so he will be out the next 4 games. That's how it looked bad. I believe this was his 2nd concussion of the year. So it sounds like they should have done this for precautionary reasons for his health. And then one other slight thing before I get too deep into this, I think we've talked about, at least I've talked about him a good deal over the last 2 seasons. First round draft pick Emmanuel Forbes Jr. was released by the team earlier this week, or last week. No, earlier this week, I'm sorry. It's still Tuesday, my days. They released him. He has already been picked up off of waivers by the Los Angeles Rams. I read some things where Dan Quinn said that it was hard for him to do so because he felt like Emmanuel Forbes has done everything that he's asked him to do. It's just not translating into the game. As we know, one of the biggest knocks on him coming out of school was his frame, and it's just been really tough for him. So hopefully a change of scenery for him. We know the likes of Sean McVay out there could possibly revive a career. But it's also worth noting that the Ron Rivera draft era is completely out the door. His 4 first-round draft picks that he was a part of making those decisions are no longer, either they were traded away from the team or they were cut. So they're really starting fresh 100% now in in Northwest Stadium. But back to this game. In 3 straight losses, Washington's running backs averaged only 3.3 yards per carry. On only 3 runs for more than 10 yards. On Sunday, they rushed for 229 yards. Brian Robinson, of course, recording 16 carries, 103 yards with a touchdown. Other backs also had 6 carries for 10 yards or more, and added up to tying a season high in points for them in the rushing department. Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy Nichols also contributed as well with Brian Robinson, but we know Brian Robinson is the one. He's the number 1 back in that room. But again, after those 3 consecutive losses, Washington was 2.5 games behind the Eagles in the NFC East race. So again, this was a game that they needed to win, especially when they have some games coming up that should also be wins for them. They have games coming up against New Orleans, Atlanta, and Dallas. That you're looking at the schedule on paper and what some of these teams have done. You would think it's favorable. Atlanta's struggling. New Orleans has been up and down all year, and then Dallas just came there and beat them. So that's definitely something that they had to get with this game. But Jaden Daniels looked like himself again. He had two misfires on the day. One was an interception that he threw a little bit high. It went off of Zach Ertz's hands, and then he had another one where he could have thrown it, and Noah Brown would have caught a touchdown, but it was a little bit inaccurate. But outside of that, he had a pretty good day. The Titans did, they tried their best. God bless their heart, to do everything that they could, but they just got blinked too early into the game, and they were never able to climb out of that hole. Terry McLaurin, we had a Terry McLaurin sighting in these last 3 games. We haven't seen much of him, and of course, you have conflicting reports when it comes to Terry. Is he really scary, Terry? Has him not having a quarterback held him back with being mentioned in the top tier of the wide receivers in the NFL? He came back a little bit to form. He had the 2 touchdowns in the first half, and he wasn't really needed after that, to be completely honest. One thing I saw, one thing that it seemed like Cliff Kingsbury is listening to, the people out there that are saying these things about him. One thing that I heard last week before this game was that Terry McLaurin usually doesn't venture off the left side of the field or left side of the line. You saw him get a little bit outside of that. He was on the right side. He moved around a little bit more. So it seems like they're trying to put him in better situations to have him impact the game a little bit more, which they're going to need as time goes on. As they get closer and closer for also a playoff push for them. Their run defense, the Commanders, was a whole hell of a lot better. Of course, they didn't have to do it so much because, like I said, they blanked the Titans early in the first quarter. It was 21-0 before you knew it. The special teams for Titans, it was just bad. So they didn't have to do it much, but when they did have to, defend the run, they did well. They held the Titans to 35 yards rushing on 11 attempts, and held Tony Pollard to the 35, which is his 3rd lowest total of the season. So all in all, it was a game that they were supposed to win. It was a game that they did win. They went out there and, definitely in front of their home fans. Because I know those Commanders fans were starting to get a little perturbed with these last 3 games, especially the way they started the season. So they went out there and put on a show for their fans. And they will have a chance, to have, string together 2 consecutive games to play against the Saints this Sunday at 1 p.m. Next, we'll get to the interdivisional game that we had with the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. I'm pretty sure the schedule makers did not predict these 2 teams being in the type of shape they're in. Well, I'll say that probably one. I'm pretty sure they were. I don't know, because I feel like if they knew that the Giants were going to be bad, like they've always been, I don't know why they keep subjecting us to this horror of the Giants, but here we are. The New York Giants, while they are the New York Giants, they kind of fought in this game, I guess, a little bit, if you look at the score and just the score only. But they did lose to the Dallas Cowboys 27-20. On the Giants side, Drew Lock with his Giants debut, 21-33, 178 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 6 times, 4 carries, 57 yards, 1 touchdown rushing, and he fumbled once. Tyrone Tracy Jr. had 9 carries for 32 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 receptions for 33 yards. And Malik Neighbors, 8 receptions, 69 yards. On the Dallas Cowboys side, Cooper Rush was 21-36, 195 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 sacks, 5 carries for 0 yards, which is crazy. Rico Dowdle had 22 carries for 112 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 receptions for 11 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 10 receptions, 67 yards, 1 carry for 1 yard. Kayvon Turpin, 4 receptions, 53 yards, 1 carry for 2 yards. And Brandon Cooks, welcome back, 3 receptions, 16 yards, and 1 touchdown. I'll start on the Giants side because it shouldn't take me that long. The Giants are just still floundering away, not even just in the division, but in the entire league. It's just bad. It's tough to watch. It doesn't make it any better that they keep putting them on national TV. I was researching before this game, before today, and I found a funny article title that said, "Are the Giants celebrating their 100th season with the worst year in team history?" The answer is yes. So, congratulations to the Giants, who continues to defy the normalcy that we're used to. Also, they did come out and state that Dexter Lawrence and rookie Theo Johnson are likely out for the season, which, I mean, they're not fighting for anything, so they should just let them rest until next year. They're Dexter Lawrence with a dislocated elbow and Theo Johnson with a foot injury. But yeah, they hate to see. I feel like the Giants hate to see anybody in the NFC East coming, except for maybe the Commanders, because I feel like they usually kind of play them well. And it's kind of weird. But they don't feat too well against the other two teams in the NFC. The loss was the 8th in a row to Dallas, and the 15th over the last 16 meetings, a streak that goes back to 2017. The Giants' victory came in 2021 under Coach Joe Judge. This loss was also their ninth in 10 nationally televised games under Coach Brian Dable, which again proves my point. Please stop putting them on national TV. We do not want to see it. And I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like the one win on national TV was probably the playoff win over the Vikings 2 years ago. So congratulations on that. In the words of Malik Neighbors, it doesn't matter who's back there in quarterback. We're getting the same results. My man Drew Lock was running for his life the entire game as well. He looked meh, just like pretty much any other quarterback that's been back there this year, Daniel Jones included, as well as Tommy DeVito, who didn't even make it out of one game healthy. So again, it goes back to the same thing they say year over year with them. Their offensive line is trash, regardless if it's the players that are healthy or they have injuries. It's just not working out. And then, of course, we all saw Hard Knocks off season where, offensive line was something that they knew they needed to fix, and that was something that they were going after. I can't think of all of them. I think it was John Ryan and Jermaine Illuminor, two of the big players that they targeted in the free agency. Didn't seem to shape up too well. Add insult to injury, they continue to have a lot of penalties. They had 13 accepted penalties in the game, which is pretty high. Although I will say there are a lot of teams in the NFL that are struggling with penalties this late in the season as well. But it was the highest total in Brian Dable's tenure as head coach. The previous high was 11 at Pittsburgh earlier this season. And they're not turning the ball over. We talk about Dexter Lawrence being out. He got injured in this game, I believe, and he went out and did not return. The Giants entered the game with a -6 turnover differential in the season. They did not force a turnover, of course, in this game. So it became the 12th consecutive game. They did not have a positive turnover differential, which is the longest single season streak in franchise history. Again, going back to 100th season, worst team ever it is. They did not record an interception for the 11th consecutive game, which is also an NFL record. And they have exactly one on the entire season by rookie backup linebacker Darius Muasau. For the record, the Giants have lost their 9 games in which they did not have a takeaway. On the defensive side, again, former first-round pick Kayvon Thibodeau, 2 sacks in his 6 games played. And the highly anticipated Brian Burns Spider-Man has 6 sacks in the 12 games and has the Giants only sack in the past month. So just time to pack it up and go. It's just not going to be too good for them. And unfortunate for them, it's just not going to get any better. I just realized I put the wrong team that they play next week. Actually, are they on bye next week? No, I'm right. They play the Saints next week. So why did I say? That's why I apologize. The Commanders are on a bye this week coming up. So they will play the Saints on the 15th of December. But the New York Giants will play the Saints this Sunday coming up. That's why I was confusing myself. On Dallas' side, granted, they beat the Giants like they should have. It was still a little bit too close, in my opinion, as bad as the Giants have been. But in the state of the Dallas Cowboys, a win is a win. You got to get what you can get, and you can see that at least the players are still playing hard out there. Their defense, of course, is starting to come back into fruition and back into form. As we know, they've had a lot of injuries. There's been reports that Marcus Lawrence is getting closer to being healthy enough to play. They had two more takeovers, including the pick six by, of course, the star of the entire show, Demarion Overshawn. After New York gained 70 yards on his first drive, they only got 33 yards in their next 21 plays in the first half. So their defense is stepping up, and they're going to have some tests coming up, especially after the slow start that they had with Mike Zimmer in his first year. And then, of course, with the injuries that they've had on the defensive side as well. So they're starting to kind of form a little bit. Unfortunate for them, it's coming a little bit late in the season, obviously. But another bright spot for them, they had their first 100-yard rusher since Tony Pollard in 2023 with Rico Dotto at 112 yards. We know it's been really hard for them on the rushing side. I don't know if it's I think we all know it's the decision making and the personnel. Of course, if they have Rico Dotto just doing the best that he can, but we know he's not a top tier back. Not saying that he can't get there, but currently he isn't. So it's been tough. Like I said, this was the last time the Cowboys running back went for more than 100 yards was Tony Pollard against the Arizona Cardinals in 2023. 26 game span was the longest 100-yard game drought in franchise history. So the Cowboys over there making history as well. Before I start, well, not before I start because I'm already in it, but I also would like to say relax because you are not 100% back. I've heard the craziest things. We're gonna run the table. It's gonna be 9-7, and we're gonna make the playoffs. Not saying it's completely out of the picture, but let's pump our brakes a little bit. Yes, we're on a 2-game winning streak. And against, let's be honest, the Commanders were struggling, and then it's the Giants. But again, wins are wins. You have to play the teams that are in front of you, and they're doing what they were supposed to do. Cooper Rush didn't play amazingly, but he didn't play terribly. He took advantage of the opportunities that he had. They had a lot of good field positions due to the turnovers that they had outside of the pick six by Demarion Overshawn. They kind of put him in good places. Eric Kendricks also forced a fumble on Drew Lock that was also recovered by Demarion Overshawn. So put them in good places. They used their field position to go ahead and score some points. Brandon Cooks, 2-yard touchdown. He was able to come back in where they definitely need, of course, as much wide receiver help as possible. So it wasn't a terrible game. It was a game again, like I said, with the Commanders, a game that they should have won and a game that they did win. And they're going to be tested, of course, coming up. They'll be tested on the defensive side next week because we know the Cincinnati Bengals do not have a defense. So the offense, it's going to be tested because, of course, Cooper Rush is at the helm, and you want to see what he's going to be able to continue to do, of course, as a backup that's starting. But outside of Cincinnati's defense, Joe Burrow is playing lights out, and we know they have Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is back. Gesicki is playing decently. And Chase Brown, second year running back who's taken over for Joe Mixon, has had, some pretty good games this year. Shout out to him. He's on my fantasy team. Been winning me some games. And the Dallas Cowboys will play on a Monday night. So the entire world will be watching at 8:15. The entire world of adults will be watching, and the entire world of kids will be watching on Disney Plus, and they're going to have The Simpsons out there. I don't know how this goes. Like, I think they said Homer is the Cowboys and Bart is the Bengals, and I don't know. I'm not going to watch it, but I'm sure some kid is going to watch it somewhere. So that sounds like fun for them. And last but not least, this is the reason why I've come, because had there been a different outcome, I would not be here. The Philadelphia Eagles defeated the Baltimore Ravens, 24-19. Jalen Hurts was 11 of 19, 118 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 2 sacks, 9 carries for 29 yards and 1 touchdown. One rushing touchdown. Saquon Barkley, 23 carries, 107 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 receptions for 10 yards. A.J. Brown, 5 receptions, 66 yards, and Dallas Goedert, 3 receptions, 35 yards, and 1 touchdown. This was probably the most difficult game to this point for them, at least playing against the team on paper. We know what the Ravens record is, but we know that doesn't necessarily show exactly the team that they are. And of course, this was the big ticket game all week. That's all everybody talked about was, of course, because you have three potential MVP candidates in one game, and Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson. And the game kind of started like all Eagles games do, pretty slow. The Philadelphia Eagles had a goose egg again in the first quarter. They have the fewest points league wide in the opening frame of each game at 17. At this point, I've come to the realization that they're just getting warmed up in the first quarter. They're not all the way there yet. They're still eyeing out what the other team is doing, making adjustments. It seems like that because it seems that they kind of turn it up in the second quarter and the fourth quarter. It is concerning if you're a fan like myself that could eventually bite them in the behind if you get behind too far in the first quarter. Are you going to have enough to pull it out? But with the play of course, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, who also injured his knee in this game, had MRI. And they also did not have Devontae Smith in this game. So they have a little bit of injuries, but I won't say most important, but some of the most important people are completely healthy when you think about Jalen Hurts and his rushing ability, Saquon Barkley, his home run ability. AJ Brown, I think they're undefeated with him in games this year. He missed two games early in the season or something like that, and they lost both of those. So that, and then of course the biggest injury from last week with Brandon Graham going out for the season with a torn tricep. So stepping into his position, edge rusher Nolan Smith Jr. Had a really good game. He had a sack, 8 tackles, and a tackle for loss, and applied a lot of pressure to Lamar Jackson. Of course, Lamar Jackson still got off. There were a lot of plays that I literally was screaming because I thought they hit him, and next thing I know, the ball was halfway down the field. So, Lamar is that guy. So that's why I think this game was that much more important for us to go out there and prove that we can beat him, especially knowing Lamar Jackson before this game was 23-1 versus NFC teams, and now he is 23-1, and now he is 23-2. And would you believe the other NFC team he lost to was the New York Giants and Daniel Jones? Wild and crazy, but that's the truth. So the score 24-19. It was 9-0 at a point, 14-12 for the entire third quarter after halftime. Nobody scored in the third quarter. But the Eagles defense has just been playing out of its mind up front. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, who was awesome. And like I stated last week, in my opinion, is starting to get, not saying that he is this player, but he is starting to get treated like Aaron Donald. He is double teamed pretty much every single snap. I mean, Jesus Christ, the refs, I wish you would throw a flag on holding every now and then. It would be nice, but I understand he's a large human and you think he's just going to get through it. And he continues to do so eventually. So he's having a really, really good game, a really good season. You got to talk about the exciting whites in Cooper DeJean or DeJean at this point. I'm calling him DeJean. And then Reed Blankenship, who also went out this game with a concussion. So hopefully he'll be good. I would assume he's not going to play next week. That's just my assumption. Just because I'll tell you who we're playing next week and you'll understand. But they're playing amazing. Queen Mitchell, of course. I mean, of course, everybody is talking about the hit Cooper DeJean on Derrick Henry. There's a lot of people, his head wasn't up, his feet wasn't set. I don't care about none of that. You see Derrick Henry coming down and you lower your shoulder and you power drive into the ground. I'm taking the win and I'm moving on. It was a game that they had to win. They are, again, like I said, it seems like they don't really get started until second quarter, fourth quarter. They entered the game averaging 8.9 points per game in the fourth quarter. Second best behind the Colts in the NFL with the league best plus 49 in the fourth quarter point differential. They outscored the Ravens 10-7 in the fourth quarter on Sunday, which was really 10-0. They got a garbage touchdown in the last minute, and understandably so. There are a lot of talks saying if they actually really would have won the game after the disastrous outing for Justin Tucker. He missed 2 field goals and an extra point. Um, while I understand it, you look in math, 3 plus 1 equals 7. 7 plus 19 is more than 25. And they would have won the game, but them making those field goals would have put them in different positions, in my opinion. So we can't 100% say that that would happen, but I understand he left 7 points on the board. That's something concerning for the Ravens going forward that um, they're going to have to look into. But all in all, of course, the star of the game is always going to be Saquon Barkley, 107 yards rushing in this week. He is now at 1,499 yards rushing through 12 games. He is on pace to break the single season rushing record of 2,105 yards set by Eric Dickerson in 1984. He had 44 rushing yards through the first 3 quarters, then erupted for 63 yards, including a 25-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter to again ice the game. He is the closer that we have been needing, and it just looks like he's having fun. It looks like they are. I mean, the offensive line is doing amazing as well. I couldn't find the exact stat, but Saquon has like the highest number of rushing yards before he's even touched by the defense due to the lanes that the offensive line are opening up and the gaps for him. So we're playing really, really well. I'm hoping that they keep this going. They have to keep level headed. But they are going to be playing against the Panthers this Sunday. So that's why I say I expect Reed Blankenship not to play if he's not 100% ready. We also did not have Darius Slay in this game as well. So there are some concerning injuries as well as another team in the NFC who is 1 game ahead of us. They also have a lot of big time injuries on their defensive side with the Detroit Lions. And they have a very pivotal game coming up this week against the Green Bay Packers, who of course wants to get back from their game earlier this year. So there'll be a big game if they were able to lose that game. The Philadelphia Eagles are able to pull out a win, which they should against the Carolina Panthers. The number 1 seed could be up for grabs at that point. So it's going to be very interesting this week coming up, and I'm just ready for it.
Yeah, man. See who gets home field in NFC playoffs. It should be fun. Ray, from postseason to not so much, possibly. Something about the Wizards, what they've been up to. Floor is yours.
Yeah, don't know what to say about these guys. They just continue to pile up the L's. They're up to 14 in a row now. The Wizards stand at 2-16. They played the Clippers last Wednesday and the Bucks on Sunday. They lost both of those games. They're also without Kyle Kuzma right now, who's injured in Wednesday's game against the Clippers in the first quarter. Really doesn't make that much of a difference because the results were dismal with him in the lineup. But yeah, man, they're just nosediving, to be perfectly honest. Up to 16 losses in early December. I mean, we already know what time it is with that. But yeah, man, their main issue is they shoot too many threes and they don't make a lot of them. That really it cripples them in a lot of ways. First, you're shooting a lot of shots that you're not making. They're not even good looks, and allows teams to get out and run on them. They don't have the firepower to just try to outshoot teams. And while they're shooting these ill-advised shots, it doesn't give them a chance to set up their defense. When they can manage to actually get teams in half court, they're not terrible. But the fact that they're not efficient on offense, it kind of puts them in a bad spot. So, them not executing on offense, and that leads to them not giving themselves a chance on defense. And that's why we're seeing the results we're seeing. They got to clean that up. Malcolm Brogdon being there he's kind of giving them a steady hand. Him and Jordan Poole actually great in the game against the Bucks, but it was just too much Dame and Giannis on the other side. But yeah, man, they gotta figure out a way to maximize their strengths. They got a lot of length and versatility, and that shows itself when they're able to actually set up and play defense against teams. We've seen them compete. They had a game against the Celtics a couple of weeks ago where the Celtics are the best 3-point shooting team in the league. They were able to get those guys in the half court, contest shots, run them off the 3-point line, and harass them into a bad 3-point shooting night, and they gave themselves a chance in that game. They got to find a way to do that stuff more often. But yeah, it's a rough go for them so far. Right now, they're playing the Cavs. They're down by 23. So more the same. But yeah, we'll just continue to report the news that they give us. But yeah, they're having a really rough go at it this season.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Like you mentioned, what the current score is, which we'll get to later on. Wizards outlook, and then I love hearing how you really. There's no really big point of talking about what's coming up ahead next, because December's not fun. December is just this week alone. At home you got the Mavs, Joker, and John's back. So with that information, what you will, folks. College basketball getting closer and closer to conference play. Obviously, as the time goes by, Maryland women's basketball. Real quick, let's get this up here for you guys. They benefited. They've been pretty busy since the last time we spoke. They participated in the Navy Classic over the weekend. First, they beat George Mason 66-56 to move to 7-0. The Terps jumped out to an 18-8 lead in that one. However, George Mason didn't wilt. George Mason came into that game, I believe, at 6-0. And they took Maryland's early punch. They withstood it. They even took a lead, midway through the third quarter. George Mason took a 2-point lead, and then Maryland kind of got some separation. They pulled ahead late thanks to Cheyenne Sellers. Then Kayleen Smichael led the Terps in scoring for her 6th consecutive game, 11 of her 16 coming in the second half. Sellers had 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. The Terps got 20 points from their bench, which included a double-double from Sarah Poffenberger, and 10 points and 12 rebounds. And then Kennedy Harris led Mason with 26 points. Maryland followed that up with a wire win over Toledo, is what we see on the screen at the moment. They won that one 90-70. Poffenberger had a season-high 19 off the bench, along with 10 rebounds. So she had her first 2 double-doubles for Maryland in back-to-back games, which is a great look. Obviously, she also had 2 blocks. She's she also played a little bit of a role in Maryland's second quarter run. Smichael had 17 points in this one. Cheyenne Sellers added 14 points and 8 rebounds. Again, the Maryland defense was kind of the key in this one. They forced 20 turnovers in this one. And if you guys have had a chance, I know you guys heard me talk about them. If you had a chance to see them this year, you know firsthand, you turn the ball over against them, they're out. Whoever gets it, they're gone. So, the last thing in the world you want to do is turn it over. You turn it over 20 times, you're in for a very, very, very long afternoon. The MVP of the Navy Classic was one Cheyenne Sellers. Kayleen Smichael was named to the all-tournament team. Maryland is now 8-0 on the year, and they have now moved into the AP Top 10. So shout out to them for that as we get closer and closer to conference play, which is when the fun starts. We got the new additions to the Big Ten, some of which will be making their trip out to College Park this year. We got USC and their group coming out in January. But for Maryland, they're currently hosting St. Mary's as we record this week's episode. Look, man, they were up the last time I looked. I'm not going to go find the score for you guys, but they were okay. But I want to get into this guy with you guys because we had a lot this week in sports. Ray, in the group chat on Twitter, some of the things that have come up are some of the topics that we'll be discussing. But we will start with Take It or Leave It. Octavia, you'll be going first on this one. Give you the heads up early just because I got an idea how Ray may feel about this. We'll see if anything changed. But here we go, man. We're gonna get straight to it. Uh, Lots was made about the Lakers moving off of Darvin Ham for a new head coach. The new head coach being one JJ Redick. Through 21 games, which it's a somewhat modest sample size. Both coaches are 12-9, went 12-9. So take it or leave it. The issues for the Lakers may have been more than just the coach, Octavia.
Take it. Obviously, because like you said, we're seeing the same thing over and over. I think they kind of got a little bit of a big head. They were on like a 4 or 5 game winning streak or something. They got blasted by the Timberwolves last night, who have also been struggling this year. It looks the same. I mean, I don't understand what you think you're going to get when you have a first ever head coach of anything remotely related to a professional basketball team. Um, I would love to be a fly on the wall in their locker room. I don't know. I just feel like outside of LeBron, many of them don't like him. I don't know. Um, I mean, he came off kind of strong earlier in the year. He already done moved D'Angelo Russell to the bench. There's it's the same Lakers. Like, it's not the coach. The coach isn't making any better. But it's the same Lakers. Like, I mean, I don't know where they are in the standings right now, but like they said, it's probably eerily similar to what they were last year. And we know that Darvin Ham was a scapegoat, and we know that LeBron James wanted his guy JJ in the seat. The same. It's not surprising. I was actually surprised when they were on a winning streak of some sort. And I think they said last night was like the first time LeBron has had 10 points in a game in like eons, and he barely got that. I think he got his 10th point on the free throw line. And he ran the risk of messing up over 1,000 game streak of double digits. Yeah, I'm not that surprised, but it's obviously not just that. They don't have a lot of talent. I feel like I mean, granted, don't get me wrong, I think the Dalton Connect pickup was good. I think they praised him a little bit too quickly, as well as he was doing. And don't get me wrong, he had a game where he had like 9 threes or something like that, so understandable. But I feel like they look for the quick fix so much. They keep trying to pull together all of these elderly players, and then wonder why said elderly players are hurt and not able to play. So I'm not surprised, and I expect more of the same going forward.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hilarious to watch. I'm taking it, you know, especially at this point where, I mean, like you said, it's a small sample size, but up to this point last season, the results are pretty similar. So, I mean, we were hearing about Darvin Ham's his faults and whatnot. But shockingly enough, haven't been hearing that about JJ. They're still talking about Darvin Ham being a bad coach. The guy's moved on. He's working at the franchise. Let it go. He also went to a Western Conference Finals with his team, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, when are they going to start talking about, I don't know, the best players on the team? Shouldn't they take some responsibility in this? But yeah, I mean, people were getting they got ahead of themselves early in the season with the JJ hype. I mean, you got to give a guy more than 4 games to show who he is. And now that the tide has kind of turned, I mean, if he was the sole reason for the success, he's got to take some part when things ain't going right, I assume. But yeah, man, we'll see how this season goes. It looks like things are about to take a turn because lately they haven't been doing too well. They got to figure something out. But yeah, man, like it's rarely ever one thing that leads to a team's success or failure. So yeah, man, people just got to be realistic about that.
All right, got another fun topic because this guy is always great for sound bites. Apparently, um, Mike Tomlin.
Mhm.
He had this to say when asked about his players being physical with big wide receivers like T. Higgins. Quote, when you're playing Shaq, we're going to use our fouls. End quote. Take it or leave it, tongue in cheek, or truly is still his philosophy when dealing with bigger wide receivers. Right.
I'm gonna take it, man. Like, what else you want to do? Like, seriously, it will behoove you to get as physical as you can with with someone that has a physical advantage, because if you don't, it's going to be a problem for you. And we know what kind of guy Mike Tomlin is. We've seen how he coaches over the last 18 years. So I I wholeheartedly believe she was 100% serious with that comment. And yeah, man, like it's football. Yeah, be physical.
Octavia.
I'm definitely taking it. The Mike Tomlinisms and everything he says are always crazy, and I believe every single word of it. And I don't blame him. I mean, think about it. The defense that's been played in Pittsburgh over however many centuries he's been there at this point. Um, that's how Pittsburgh plays. They're always going to play physical. They're not going to not play physical now on the biggest wide receiver out there. You definitely getting it more than anybody else. So, not surprising. I believe him 110% that he meant every single word of it.
Yeah, that was an easy one. Okay, everyone passed. Great. All right, this should be an interesting one just because we always talk about things that are so geared to in sports these days. I'm sure there's a couple times to it. This is one of the main controversial play that happened this past weekend. All right, it's going to keep playing. So, the NFL suspended Houston Texas linebacker Aziz Al Shair 3 games for repeated violations of player safety rules after his hit to the head of Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence on Sunday. One of the things in this is Trevor Lawrence, for those that don't know, has stands about 6'6", 230, 240, whatever. So, all quarterbacks when they slide aren't exactly small people. That said, just keep that in mind. But my question was, take it or leave it, QBs need to be more decisive in how soon they give themselves up, or do we just go with what the narrative is right now? It was just a dirty hit, and we just keep it moving. Octavia.
I'm going to go a little on both. I don't think in this particular situation he was trying to play the field or play a game when it comes to either sliding or faking out the defender and then trying to drive past them. But I do think that there are quarterbacks that do that, which is the reason why this happens. Unfortunately, now I do think it was. I don't think it. I don't like to say it was a dirty hit because I feel like I don't know anybody's personal intentions or anything like that. But it appeared to be that way when you're leading with your forearm that has this big ass brace on it and you're aiming it for the quarterback's the crown of his head. And you're talking about a quarterback who this was his first game back after suffering an injury 2 weeks ago that kept him out the last 2 weeks. So he is already coming off of an injury and you're lunging yourself at him. I think it's hard for both sides because I think defenses are trying to figure out what they can and can't do, and sometimes it's hard to react in the moment. I do think that sometimes people have tendencies, and he has a tendency to do things like this, unfortunately, and that's what caused him to have a 3 game suspension due to this. I think the only way to mitigate this, of course, like some people have stated, of course, quarterbacks are going to need to learn how to protect themselves in all situations. Because you don't know what's going to happen. Of course, defensive players need to also be aware of when a player is giving themselves up. But I also think that they should have something in the rule book that if a player does, like, get my words out. The quarterback does do. I can't remember who it was in college that started this whole thing. That fakes out that they're going to slide and not slide. They need to be penalized. That's it, to me, like that'd be the only way that will get them to stop doing that. Like if you're going to give yourself up, give yourself up. because they're trying their best to protect. The league is trying their best to protect them. But if you can't protect yourself because you're out there playing games, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Although I don't believe in this situation that's what Trevor Lawrence was doing. So that's why I understand the uproar, the brawl, and everything. Because you got to go out there and protect your guy. Especially like I said, he's coming off of injuries as it is, and the Jaguars are already struggling. Their coach is on the hot seat. People are wondering why Trevor Lawrence got paid the way he did. So they got a lot going on there too. So I understand it from both sides. In this particular situation, I do think Algier was wrong. That's Algier. Aziz Alshir, one of those. I do think he was wrong in this situation. So I do think that it warrants the suspension. I don't know if I think a fine came with. I don't know if a fine came with it or just that he's docked game checks, which is a fine in itself. Yeah, I don't, and I don't. I know this wasn't part of the question, and I don't like D'Amico Ryan's response to it as well. To kind of blame it sounded like he was blaming Trevor Lawrence instead of just saying that's not what the game's about. He made a poor decision. We do want quarterbacks to protect themselves and move on.
Right.
Yeah, I think this could be a little bit of two things can be true at once. Like, yeah, the QBs, they gotta, because basically that play, it did look like Lawrence initiated the slide very late. And at that point, I mean, the defender's kind of in a no-win situation, because if you're just starting to slide while I'm already going into my tackling motion, then nobody's reflexes are that good to just fully pull back at that point. It's too late. The collision's going to happen. But to Octavia's point, the way he led, with his forearm, that it did seem to have some intent behind it. And then, of course, the suspension was probably based on reputation at this point, because he's like you said, he had numerous instances, but overall, yeah, the league, they're trying, they're definitely trying to protect the quarterbacks as much as possible, but something's got to give here. I think the penalizing guys for doing the fake sliding thing, that's definitely a way to go there. But yeah, like, just be intentional about it. If you know you're about to slide, just go ahead, get it out the way so things like this don't even have an opportunity to happen. But yeah, I think if that was the first incident of this nature with the Texas player, then I don't think suspension is happening. But since he's he's done it multiple times, yeah, they got to kind of do something about that. But yeah, QBs, they just got to be more decisive about what they're going to do and when.
Yeah, I don't know if 3 games is worth it. I do think it came because of the now reputation, which is interesting to me that Aziz all of a sudden has reputation. Everybody in the NFL, some people still hit hard and they don't know. There's not, oh, I'll hit this guy less harder than this guy or that guy. Some folks, it's I'm going to hit you, and that's it. And Aziz is one of those folks. He's one of the once I trigger it, like essentially, it's about going to tackle. Once you shoot your gun, like you start the motion. Some people, there's no faking in it. They go. And for some folks who are like with the forearm, I'm sorry, folks, but Aziz is a very violent tackler. That forearm was going to come out no matter what. He's not a huge linebacker, about 6'2". He's trying to protect himself too. However, man, you keep running out here, bending people's face mask off impact, we'll get in trouble, brother. Like, we'll get in trouble. But at the same time, I want the consistency from the refs. Treat all quarterbacks that scramble the same, and I'm probably less inclined to feel how I feel at this moment. Trevor Lawrence, bless your heart. You're not Lamar Jackson scrambling out the pocket or Jalen Hurts scrambling out the pocket. At the same time, I've seen Jalen Hurts take some hits that do not get flagged, sir. Just want to throw it out there. If that was Hurts, we wouldn't even be talking about it. It would have been like, get up, next play. If he leaves the game, he come back. Hey, is Jalen coming back out or not? No flag, no nothing. That's it. Also, I think Tom Brady had a really good quote where he said it was something he was working on. He recognized late in his career, late, hilarious because he played forever. I need to get my butt down on the ground early. What Tom learned, because he took one of them hits before. And he's like, I don't need it. I don't need that. Like, I'm just gonna go down early. You know, sometimes they tell folks fight for every yard beforehand. Make a decision, either fight for it or don't. But you know, I get it, reputations and whatnot. On to rapid fire. This should be a good one. All of us are old enough to know who this is. Some of y'all only know his brother, who's on social media all the time and TV right now.
He was talking to him.
Look, I'm trying to do my best, Octavia. Please don't. I'm doing good. Please don't. All right, Sterling Sharp is one of the finalists for the upcoming class of Pro Football Hall of Fame. For those who are not aware of Sterling Sharp, I think for the most part, all y'all know who Jerry Rice is. He's one of the few folks in the NFL, during Jerry's illustrious, very long tenure, where if you said his name, nobody would argue back to you. You can say Jerry and bring up random names and people laugh at you. You said Sterling for a little while. No, be some deliberating. That's it. Sharp had a short but productive career for the Packers from 1988 to 1994. His best season came in 92 when he became the sixth player to win the receiving triple crown, setting an NFL record with the 108 catches for 1,461 yards, 13 touchdowns. He broke his own record with 112 catches in 93 and led the NFL with 18 touchdowns in his final season, which was in 94, unfortunately, came to an end because of just a gruesome neck injury that ended his career. So, Ray, I'll start with you. We've seen other players who have had their injuries cut short, had their careers cut short by injury, make the Hall of Fame as of late in the past few years. What's taking this so long?
I wish I had an answer for you. Like you said, man, the work speaks for itself. And I think it's a safe bet that we can say if he hadn't been injured, then his career would have gone like this. So go ahead and just come on, don't be stupid. Seriously. We saw what that man looked like when he was on the field. And it's not like, he had an injury, came back and played bad or something like that. He had a career-ending injury at a time where we saw what it was about to look like. So get a man his due, and like you said, it's already a precedent for it. So just they need to just do the right thing here.
Yeah, we'll see how they do, because there's also a longer list of folks who played long careers without injury who are lacking that nod. Octavia.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like everything Ray said. I mean, I hate that sometimes all of these take a very long time for these players to get in when it's kind of like a no-brainer at a certain amount of time. But yeah, he's definitely I mean, it's laughable to think that we're in 2024, 2025, and we're just now talking about him actually being a finalist and possibly getting in. I think this should have been done. But I mean, I'm hopeful that he gets in. I know it doesn't make it any better that it's taken this long, but I know he's probably happy and been looking at his bunch like it was about goddamn time. As y'all know who I am, that when I was out there. And like you said, injuries, sometimes there are players that just unfortunately get bit by the injury bug and they're just not able to really kind of get back to the way that they wanted to play the game that they love. But when he was healthy, he was a dog. So I don't understand what the decision making is at this point. I know that they have to do dramatics and wait till forever for it to really be released. I don't know how long it takes again, but let's just go ahead and etch his name in. Just get everything ready for him.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. He was amazing, and to think, and I'll say this, and it's not to knock Shannon in the least bit, But to me, this is one of the cases where little bro wasn't better than big bro. And if little bro ended up with a gold jacket, hey man, I'm just, no disrespect. One got moved to tight end, one didn't. So, like, just want to throw that out there a little bit. But again, not disrespecting anybody, two totally different positions. But that's a bad man in that picture, man. Like, I didn't acknowledge the other one until after he got hurt. That's just me personally. It took me a while to get around to the other one. But hey, a quick question for you guys. Don't have a picture to accompany this at all, but the W, you gotta love it, right? The expansion draft is finally happening this week. It'll be the first one since 2008. Essentially, the Golden State Valkyrie get to select one player from each of the 12 teams in the league, one of which that may be eligible for free agency following this upcoming season. I'm trying to find the list real quick, but there's a list where Kevin Pillen of ESPN trying to correctly guess which players would be safe because, of course, that list hasn't been made public yet. We'll kind of find out after the expansion draft by virtue of who's no longer on their team and who still is. In the future, as the W continues to expand, I would really like it if don't tell me the deadline if you're not going to tell me who got saved. I would like to, give us the information or don't. Just saying. But I'm going to try to find these. So we'll go through a few of these. But I guess just early on, you guys, we all kind of know in our heads what's on what roster, who probably available to whatnot. If you're Golden State, though, you're looking around the league. Are there any names that initially pop up to you where you're like, yes, I would definitively take that off that roster or that off that roster should it be made available? Ray, I'll give you a couple minutes to think, then I'll start with you, and then Octavia, I'll let you follow Ray.
Because I'm sitting there thinking like,
and I think the draft happens on, I want to say on Saturday or Friday, which is the 6th. I apologize.
Like it's kind of tough because, like, you're not getting, like superstars or anything like that. Those players are most likely going to be protected. But like I look at one of these players that was on a hardship last year that kind of showed their worth, like a Monique Billings. A player of that stature, kind of in that range. Just to get solid veteran pieces that know how to play, and then hope you can land something big in the draft. But yeah, it is tough to kind of decipher without having that list available. I'm not sure why is that being made available.
The list isn't available. Just something to help a little bit, so your brain's not like who. So this is Kevin Pelton, his projection. So thank you, Kevin Pelton, for at least helping us brainstorm. Sometimes you need to see stuff on the page to get your brain moving. So yeah, so something as simple as this. What I would ask is who he has projected as protected. Do you agree with? Because that's the tough part. There's 6 you have to protect that you don't like. You don't even want that to be up in the air. Then the rest that's what makes it fun.
And I mean, like, looking at this roster right here, I mean, to be perfectly honest, and again, no disrespect to anybody, I only really see 2 names that I would for sure say you got to stay here, and that's Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard. That's just me personally. But you got to choose 6. So obviously they picked 6 players, but yeah, like there's but as far as the unprotected players, like I said, somebody like Cheyenne Parker Tyus knows this league, got a lot of years under her belt. She had one of her best years last year. So that's somebody I would look at. Yeah, man. Ariel Powers, depending on her health, that's another player I would look at. She's had a tough couple years injury-wise, but she's a championship player. That would be that would be a good piece to have, especially on a franchise just starting out. So So yeah, it's it's a
decent
good
name.
spot to be in because people aren't going to be able to protect everybody, and they'll definitely be able to find some gems in that in the pot there. So yeah, man. Yeah, looking forward to seeing what our Golden State's going to do with that.
All right. So since we have the list in here, and again, you might not agree with exactly who he has in terms of protected and unprotected. I'll just simply ask you guys, if you guys would go to state with what's available from Atlanta, what player would you select? Knowing in your head, what we were discussing. So Octavia, start with you. Ray, it seems like you're probably going Cheyenne Parker Tyus.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'd be going to. But
me too. I would agree.
All right, so we'll just make this a little easy and then get out of here. You got the sky, which is fun. Haha. Because a lot of these people, haha, rookies. Haha. Haha. Gotta protect 6. Can't let rookies go, right?
I'm taking Diamond off the top. She gotta go.
So all right, Octavia's jumping out the gate. She said, Diamond the shares now, please. Thank you. Right.
A couple options, man. Given this list, Diamond or maybe I see 5 of those players I wouldn't mind having on my team, to be perfectly honest.
Well, that's fine. You can share the 5. It's okay. You share the 5 you would be interested in. That's fine.
Diamond, Mariah Jefferson, Isabel Harrison, Rachel Banner, and Lindsay Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting there. Obviously, Diamond jumps out, but I'll be sitting there like Izzy Harrison on a team where she possibly doesn't have to be depth. Sounds fun.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, especially if you're starting somewhere. You imagine, depending on what your Golden State, depending on what you're selecting, like your front court could possibly be Izzy Harrison next to Cheyenne Parker Tyus. Like that's absurd.
Yeah.
All right, Connecticut. Again, some interesting names. And the fun part with this is you got some players that are young that are kind of just still growing, but have kind of taken some interesting steps. But that's what makes it fun, because if you can only protect 6.
I'm looking at Tiffany Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
She definitely made some strides last year.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at Tiffany Mitchell and Olivia Nelson-Ododo.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. She definitely had some good strides last year. When who did she come in for? I think
Bree Jones.
Yeah, I didn't see her name there anymore. That's what I was like. When she spelled her, right. And when she spelled her, and she was having a little bit of a hard time in the playoffs getting going. So yeah, I was looking at Olivia Nelson-Ododo. I think she has a really good upside.
All right, another fun one. Dallas, who has the first pick. You know who allegedly supposed to be walking into that building? Miss Backers. Depending on whatever happens, but hey man, there's some names on this one. There's some young names on this
one. Kalani Brown and Jaylen Brown immediately jump out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
Hey man, if she was to be available again, we have no idea what Kouye is at this point. I'm a new team. I got time to find out. That's just me. And I'm not. Hey, look, I see Kalani, I see Jaylen. It's not a knock on them. I'm just saying, if I'm new and I'm gonna be picking high for a little bit, anyways. Hey man, I got some minutes in a rotation with nobody ahead of you. Just me. All right, we got Indiana again, another fun team with rookies where back-to-back number 1 picks means some people aren't options, which means spots are taken. So, yeah, man. If you could take someone off this list, who would it be?
Ooh. I mean, Victoria Saxon is interesting because I feel like I haven't seen enough of her. I think Grace Berger is interesting. Of course, Katie Lou Samuelson and Erica Wheeler, but
Dantas, she showed flashes. Like they got options, man.
yeah, they probably like that's where we gonna start at.
All I'm saying is I'm not even getting too deep in that one because I know the first place all I saw was Damaris Dantas, and I was just like, that big versatility, switchy, give me now. So that's why I'm just quiet. I'm just gonna let y'all go. The Aces.
Well, we know death is an issue for Vegas, so I mean, just based on that list, you gotta look at I didn't expect Tip Hayes to be there.
Right.
So I mean, she's a little long in the tooth at this point, but she played very well last year.
I would love to see Elizabeth Kidney if she's healthy.
That's where I was going. My whole
question
thing,
mark,
if she's healthy and she played like she played in college,
all I'm saying is, what expectations do I have?
You're right.
I have time to find out. I am a question mark too. Look, that's how I'm going into this. Just me. All right, we got the Sparks again. Another team where you're just picking high. That means people that have to be protected are kind of young. We know the Erica Hamby is gonna. Was that Cam Rakia off the break? Man.
I go Zaya Cook.
All right, hey, same place with you.
Yeah.
It feels like to me, if he's going through this, there's a whole bunch of folks on this list where it's like, I would like to see more of you.
Yeah.
Notice they have that luxury. Like that's
exactly. Yeah.
I think that's most of it because you talk about the W only having 12 teams. You got all these people that don't really play that much. That you saw flashes every now and then, a little bit in the league, and definitely when they were in college. I would love to see Zaya Cook.
No, that's kind of like been the prevalent theme for me. It's just like I would like to see more of you.
Yeah,
I would like to see more of you without your current restrictions. All right, we got the links to runner up, and they got a list, man.
I like
that's a list. That's a list.
Wait, come on,
and again, this list isn't gospel, which means you could possibly have, one of those folks on the top part of the thing available on the bottom part. And I know one of them that, like, I honestly, I'm gonna leave that alone. But leave that alone. Just there's some choices.
But based on the projection, I'm going Dorka Uhas.
Yeah.
All right. So you telling me? So you telling me you could
in the playoffs too? I think she had one solid game in the playoffs. That came in.
Come out here.
Because she played more than Maisha did because of defense or height or something. I can't remember.
Just the size. At times, just 6'6" or 6'6". Hey, man. You can do some other stuff with it too. I heard it helps. All right. The Liberty, the reigning champs.
Jesus.
Big list.
Kayla Thornton jumps out.
Yep.
I was going to say her, and Markeisha Davis jumped out to me is another one. Again, I'm going to stick with this theme of I would like to see more. Just continuing on that wave for me personally. All right. I think we're almost done here. We got the Mercury where, the vets, who's going to be. It's one of the people you already mentioned. You mentioned Monique Billings earlier, who just kind of produces in whatever role she is given on whatever team.
I like to see Charisma trying stuff.
Yes. For me, we saw Celeste Taylor become a nice piece in their rotation. That was be available.
I forgot about it.
Would like to see it. Just saying. All right, we're almost done here, folks. We got Seattle. You got the big dogs up top. That clearly, I'd be shocked if one of those were made available. Again, still choices. And you got some nice fun choices with teams, with be it vets or youngsters who have at least proved they can play a role. So you guys got anybody jumps out to you guys from Seattle before we move on? And I think I'm gonna wrap up. We got Washington next, right?
Shoot. Hey, I wouldn't mind. All of them could come.
Right.
Honest.
Right. That's one of those. There's no wrong answers. That's literally one of those. What's available after? Like what's here after? You know what's left over. What do I need?
Right.
Seattle give you a little bit of everything. All right. Then I think last but not least,
nobody's like no. None of them can go.
That's not biased at all.
Hey, come on, Cinco Cone.
Man. Like, yeah. See, that's the thing where I don't even. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, man. And again, some of the people on this list, Washington hasn't had over in the W yet. It goes for who you have rights to as well. If some of you are unfamiliar with some of these names. So,
this, I don't like none of them. They can't go nowhere.
I think she's about 6'10", Burnett Attar. She just hasn't been here yet, but yeah.
I think this one's harder just because like a lot of them actually played a lot last year due to the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to see a good little glimpse of them. Like, of course, Julie Van Looje, Melbourne. Shatori can't leave. That's crazy.
If they choose her, she can.
She can't go.
You would not like it. Other people may not like it, but it is in fact possible. But look, man, looking forward to this. We'll be talking about how things shake out next week as it pertains to the WNBA expansion draft to see who the Golden State Valkyrie will start their, just their existence with before they head into the actual draft. We'll have an idea of the soft outline of what they believe in and whatnot. But we appreciate you guys spending time with us this week. We'll catch up with y'all next week. Don't forget to get over to the Focus TV. And if you got a Roku television device, all you got to do is type in the search box, the Focus TV, double tap OK to add the channel. See y'all next week.